Of the known candidates, who is your preferred choice?
My favorite would be Chris Shula. That's who I'd hire if I were the Pittsburgh Steelers. He fits the profile that they've gone to the last three times. That's not the only reason. I think he is the type of coach right now in the NFL that is on vogue in some respects. We are seeing a lot of really good defensive coaches start to rise up against the offensive wave. You know, there's the McVays, there's the Cohens, there's the Shanahans, but there's also the Mike McDonalds. There's those types now. And Shula, I think, fits into that branch really well. He has access to the McVay tree, and he's not just a guy that has been in the NFL for 4 years. You know, he's been on that staff since 2017. You look at the profile he has put together as a position coach. He's coached outside linebackers, inside linebackers, secondary. He's coached defensive line. He's coached every single level of the defense. And every single year he coached a position group, a guy had a career year. An outside linebacker, it was Dante Fowler. An inside linebacker, Ernest Jones, became what he is now in Seattle. He has coached up guys that have become really good players. The secondary, Quentin Lake, has now become one of the best nickels in the NFL. He coached him up there. That's all him. And so that's what he does. He has a tried and true resume of development, and then he gets more than he has in terms of talent on the football field. The last 2 years, the Rams were 32nd in defensive spending, and yet success rate, EPA per play, different stats like that. They were generally a top 10 defense. They get a lot of sacks. They force turnovers. There's a lot there with him. I think that is really promising as a coach. And then as a defensive coach, he has access to a lot of good assistants. I think the Shula Shieldhouse kind of branch, that sounds like a really good idea to me. You know, hiring Chris Shula as your head coach, Nathan Shieldhouse comes in as your OC. I think that's really smart. And then maybe you can bring in, a guy like Raheem Morris as the defensive coordinator. That's a really strong start to his staff.
Do you think that's what the Steelers want to do? Shula seems to be the Vegas favorite right now. And do you think that Shieldhouse this would be his best opportunity? Or do you think somebody may offer him a head coaching job?
I don't think Shieldhouse is going to get a head coaching job this year. I think he's a year or two away from that. I think teams are still hesitant to give it to a guy that's never called plays at this level. I think that is fair. He has been an offensive coordinator, but it was at Iowa State. I think they want to see it happen at the NFL level. And so he could have a great year next year at the Steelers and be gone. But I do think the Steelers would love that Shula Shieldhouse pairing. I think that is something that is really appealing to them, given the buzz Shieldhouse is getting and given where Shula is in terms of the development and the tree that he can bring. I think that is very appealing to them, yes.
So let me think about this for a moment. It would be a defensive guy. We don't know if Shieldhouse would come in with Shula, so let's just focus on Shula. We just talked about this topic because if you have a defensive guy, then you have to have the right offensive coordinator, presumably to develop a younger quarterback, and then there's always the risk of that guy leaving. So the constant question, the question looming over all of this is this the time the Steelers should choose an offensive head coach who knows how to develop quarterbacks? And that way you're coordinator proof, if you know what I mean. You don't have to worry about guys leaving, whatever, because your head coach, has the background on that. What do you make of that?
I'm just not sure there's a candidate that I can describe in that manner on the offensive market this year. I just don't see that. If there was a Ben Johnson, if there was a Liam Cohen, I'd be all for it. There's not. I think that is kind of my when I talk with people about offensive coaches, I understand that. If there was a really good, great offensive coach candidate on the market, I think that it would be a lot more appealing to do that. I just think right now you don't have that on the market. I mean, Shieldhouse has never called plays at this level. Udinski has never called plays if you wanted to go to Jacksonville. Cohen calls the plays there. Clay Kubiak, who they interviewed, again, doesn't call plays. Shanahan calls plays. The one guy that is maybe most in that vein would be Clint Kubiak. The Steelers can't interview him yet because of there's a wrinkle in the CBA that means they can't interview him until, if they wanted to, I believe, after the Super Bowl. I think it's like February 8th or something. He would have to wait a while there. He'd be the one guy I think you could look at, but I have questions about him from his previous stops in places like New Orleans. That I get some Arthur Smith 2020 vibes from him, to be quite honest with you. I'm not sold on Clint Kubiak. So to me, if there was an obvious coach, an offensive coach, I'd be all for it. I'm just not sure there is. I think the defensive coaches this cycle are much stronger. It's not the best cycle for the Steelers to be in on this market. If they had been in here a year ago, we would have been talking about Ben Johnson and Liam Cohen and all these other guys. But this cycle is very defensive slanted, and I think that's their best opportunity to get a really good coach.